So, welcome to my lesson. um, we're going to be going over Civil War for seventh graders, so it'll be at the seventh grade state requirements. Where we are right now is my attendance page. So we have some grouping and locking things here because, as you'll see, each student at the beginning of class would take their circle and drag it into their house. So Gina would be in Hufflepuff, Edna would be in Gryffindor, Ivan's in Slytherin, and of course, this is Harry Potter themed. It's my classroom, and they will be grouped into their houses within their desks as well. So anyone who's not there that day would still be left down here. Of course, I would check this with traditional attendance, but this would just give me a visual of who's here and who's not. So like I said, we're going to be going over the American Civil War for 7th grade social studies. This is my title page with just a little graphic about the Civil War. Here I have a screen shade where we're going to be going over the key facts of what we're going to be learning in this lesson. So we can see that the Civil War took place between the Union, the North, and the Confederacy, the South. It took place between 1861 and 1865. The Civil War was caused by a discrepancy over the legality of slavery. And here at the bottom, it just says, keep an eye out for bolded words. These are key vocabulary terms. This concept will come back later in my lesson, the key vocabulary terms. And this is just an explanation page. I couldn't start something about the Civil War and have it not be detailed. But here we can see where I have the vocabulary terms. That's here at the bottom. So this would be found on any page like this. We have the bolded terms up here, and then the definition can be found at the bottom of the page. This is just the main characters of the people who contributed to the Civil War. On this side, we have the Union. On this side, we have the Confederacy. We have the presidents of each, which is Abraham Lincoln and Jefferson Davis, and the generals of each, which is Ulysses S. Grant and Robert E. Lee. Here is my dragon reveal page. So it says up here that there are 23 states in the Union and 11 states in the Confederacy. This would be an opportunity for students to guess and then reveal their answer. So for example, you could guess whether or not Texas was in the Confederacy. I'm going to guess that it's in the Confederacy. And then you drag it away and you'd reveal that it is, in fact, in the Confederacy. And you could do the same for all of these, where you would reveal that it's either in the Union or the Confederacy. This again is just another one of these explanation pages. It gives students the idea of who was on each side. Here we talk about Fort Sumter, which is the place where the Civil War actually began. It was the first battle of the Civil War. That again is at the bottom of the screen, listed as a vocabulary term. This is my interactive map. I would find this really beneficial for visual learners and also interactive learners, people who are body kinesthetic, who need to interact with what they're learning. Each arrow points to a main battle of the Civil War. You could click the question marks and it would give you the name of the title, or the title of the war, the battle. And then you click the plus mark and it gives you a little bit more information about each. So we can see that the Battle of Gettysburg was a Union victory. It happened in 1863, and it was a turning point of the war. We could do this for each of these, and then the students would learn a little bit more about where these battles took place, how spread out they were over the eastern United States. This is our brain break, and if it loads, this is just the game show. At this point, the students would be broken into two groups. For example, just an example, the Slytherins and the Gryffindors, or the Hufflepuffs and the Ravenclaws. Each student would be able, for each group would be able to spin the thing and find out a little bit more about what they're learning, but they're also having fun. So it's kind of like sneaky learning, because they're having so much fun they don't realize that we're just reiterating what we've already gone over. So we can see what year did the Civil War start, and we know that that's in 1861. And then this team would have gotten 100 points. So this is where I've imported a worksheet for the students to go over This would be more individualized learning. This would be a point in time also during the lesson that I could go around and get a feel for who's where with the information. Also, what I find important about this specific lesson is that this document worksheet goes over the Emancipation Proclamation. So the student would be able to think more deeply about that, especially considering that that's something that needs deeper thinking. That's a larger concept. So they'd be able to work individually answering these questions in their notebook, and they could hand that into me, and that could be like an exit card. I can see how they understand what's happening. This is just sort of heading towards the end of the Civil War, the Appomattox Courthouse, which is where Lee surrendered to Grant. We see at the bottom that's another vocabulary term for them to remember. And here is where the vocabulary terms come back into play. This is just a matchup, so to make sure that they're really getting the definitions. For example, we can put slave labor in here, and we know that that's another term for slavery. I put in the wrong answer. It's actually bondage, and another term for slavery. That's embarrassing. You get the idea of what it would be. And here we have something that would really appeal to audio learners. This is a video, or not a video, a voice excerpt of me reading an excerpt from the Gettysburg Address. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can. And if we had listened to that entire thing, we would then break into groups and we'd have a little bit of group discussion, because again, the Gettysburg Address is a message of healing. It's where the country went from the Civil War. It's how can we heal from this great war between brothers? And that's a larger concept. That's harder for someone, specifically a 7th grader, to really understand what he meant. So we'd break into groups and we'd talk about the message of President Lincoln's speech, how would they have felt if they were there in the crowd that day, and how we can apply this to our lives today. Because the overall important thing that I'd like to have in every lesson is we're learning about the past, but why does that matter today? And these are just my references for the research that went into this. And that's an additional page that I just created.